702
Masterclass.
And we're going to be jumping into a masterclass as we do on a Wednesday. And today's masterclass, brought to you by Absa Home Loans, is on the implications and risks of skipping credit and debt payments. We'll be joined by the head of credit lending, Julian Pick, for the conversation. And we take your calls on 011 883 0702, your SMSs 31702, your tweets at Relebogile M, at Radio 702, using the hashtag 702 Afternoons, and the WhatsApp line 072 702 1702. The masterclass with me, Relebogile Mabocha, on 702 is brought to you by Absa Home Loans. T's and C's apply. Absa is an authorized financial services and registered credit provider, NCRCP7. Now, every first and last Wednesday of the month, 702 and Absa Home Loans will walk the home ownership journey with South Africans by providing expert guidance and practical tools, empowering you to make informed decisions and reducing anxiety associated with significant financial commitments such as home ownership. Today, we're speaking to Julian Pick, head of credit lending at Absa Home Loans, who's here to explain the implications and risks of skipping credit and debt repayments, especially over the festive season. A conversation relevant to us all. Even if you're not in a dire situation right now, you do need to be aware of what the implications would be. Get in touch with us, 011 883 0702, and the WhatsApp line 072 7021 702. And don't forget, we've got 5,000 Rand cash to give away, but you have to listen into the masterclass to hear what the question is going to be. Your answer will be somewhere in this conversation. 5,000 Rand cash, courtesy of Absa Home Loans. Julian, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. Really a pleasure being here.
Let's quickly touch on and start with the difference between credit score and credit record.
Okay, so your credit score is a numerical indication of your credit worthiness, whereas your credit history, how you've been paying your accounts, the number of debts that you have, is then reflecting as your credit history. Both of these, though, with skip payment, has an impact on your credit rating. So important that we have this conversation today as we enter the festive season.
So, how is my credit score and credit record determined?
So your credit score is determined by how you're spending how you're paying your debts.
Yes.
So if let's say you have 5 credit cards and you have a vehicle finance,
yes,
and a home finance and an overdraft, your payments, your number of repayments will then determine your credit score. And that then is calculated by obviously different bureaus like Experian or TransUnion use different scorecards for how they determine your credit score.
So your credit record is obviously your entire credit history.
So how you've been paying where your credit score is reflected by how you've been paying your accounts.
Yes.
Your credit history, to your point, reflects all the accounts that you have. That's reflected on bureau and how you've been servicing your debts. That will be your credit history.
Okay, and of course, the Experian and TransUnion, you get a free credit report once a year.
Once a year for free.
Once a year for free. So if you have not done it, do it now so you know exactly where it is you stand. You just need to register, put your ID number in and some other information, and then it will be able to help you out. I use this tool often just to regularly check I'm still in the good book. So what kind of changes are we seeing in South Africans' financial behavior around this December holiday season? We always have to remind people from around the 13th that paycheck is to last till end of January. It feels like
there's so much month left at the end of that pay in
Yes.
January. So yeah, I think, and I was smiling when you asked the question because I think we even myself, it becomes a silly season, for lack of a better word. People want to spend and just have fun. I think I was sharing with my colleagues earlier on. We've been, this year has also been another challenging year for us as South Africans, across the board, economically, and I think with all the, the challenges we're facing. So I think, when it comes to the end of the year, people are then, wanting to let their heads down and just go, like I say, go boss and spend, and forgetting, to the point you made, that at the end of that salary, there's a lot of months left. So what we do find, though, this time of the year, that people tend to spend a lot on Black Friday. That specials, it comes around like once a year, and
Yep.
people, forget themselves and spend. And there's also the holiday spending. So people want to go away. Like I said, people are stressed out. They want to go and just let their heads down. So people then do that. And then what typically then happens, to the point that you made earlier on around the salary. So we often find that salaries are for December are moved earlier. So to the
Yep.
middle of the month, and it often don't coincides with when debit orders are running, particularly when your debit order for your home loan is running. So that is some of the things that we're seeing, and people tend to spend, because they're forgetting that, January, it's back to school,
Yes.
and varsity fees that needs to be paid as well. So yeah, people often, we find that often our clients, and I think maybe sometimes us as well as normal consumers, forget that, we need to make and save for those times that's coming as well.
And I think those are some of the very important things to keep in mind. So now, when we look at where we're going, and it means that many people are vulnerable to their debit orders bouncing. Okay. So let us start with, you get the debit orders, which would have a more of immediate implication, and then you get the debit orders that you can still kind of fix things. Can we try and break it down into those kind of categories? Because I want you to be able to say, guys, if there's a debit order you must never miss, it's this one.
And that's the point I wanted to make. So I don't even want to make a distinction between those ones that you can maybe settle later, and those ones that obviously need your attention now.
Yeah.
All debit orders, when they are due and payable, please make sure that you make provision for them to pay them timeously. I think the consequence of not having sufficient funds in your account is actually dire, and often I think our customers don't realize the implications of not paying even one debit order. I think that's important. So yes, to the point I made earlier on. So there's no distinction between the ones that's urgent, that you kind of need to pay, and others that maybe I can get away with it. All of them needs to be paid when they due and payable.
Okay, so I will say, guys, insurance is something you can't buy when you need it.
Right.
You better pay. And policies, if God forbid that person has missed that thing and then tomorrow something happens to them, they're going to say that check bounced. But yes, agreed, is cover all of your debit orders. So let's talk preemptively, because I've heard of people who say things like, when you realize that it's close to debit order day and you know that you are going to have some debit orders bouncing, they're like, let me just withdraw the whole thing and just die once. The strategy is, let me just take the money and drink it because I'm stressed.
Not a good strategy to follow, though.
Not at all. But let's talk preemptively. Thank you. So it's the 15th of Jan,
Right.
And you can see you're not going to make it.
Right.
What can you advise a person to do?
So let's move a month earlier to December.
Okay.
So we spoke about you getting your salaries tend to move earlier in December. So my advice then, my advice would be, make sure or try or contact your bank or Absa Bank if your bond is with Absa,
Yes.
or your vehicle with Absa, to try and move your debit order so it can coincide with the date that your salary is coming through. Then you know that on that day, my salary, the debit orders that I needed to pay, it's paid, and then whatever's left, then I can go and have a good time. So very important.
So as in, if like now we're sitting, it's the 4th of December.
Right.
You can call, and I saw one of my people that I'm signed to, they sent a message to say, would you like to opt in for a 17 December debit order? So the option is there if you don't trust yourself.
Please, and or call your bank. If you don't trust yourself, please call your bank. We will also, as a bank, will send out reminders to say that your debit orders for your home loans or vehicle finance are due and payable. So please, if you can, contact your bank. We're there for you. I mean, our tagline in Absa is "Your story matters," and it really, I think it's at times like these that we really want to show our clients that their stories really matters.
Yes. Okay, so call your bank, ask for an earlier debit order if you are way ahead of the game.
Right.
Fast forward to, okay, you didn't plan properly and now it's getting close to debit order day. Is there room to still call your bank and say, guys, listen, end of Jan, I think I'm going to have a problem. Can we maybe look at the 5th of Feb for my debit order?
Okay. So there will be space. So definitely, and that's why I want to emphasize, call your bank earlier. If you know you're going to run into trouble, don't wait for the end of the month or for the 5th and now wanting to call the bank. Rather phone when you know now already, we're on the 4th of December. You know, and obviously I would have expected or would suggest that clients would have a budget, proper budget set out. So these payments or these debit orders, these accounts are due by whatever day. So you know in advance. So to come end of December, you and also your family is not surprised when there's no money in the account, because you have planned properly to make sure that you have spoken to the bank and have made arrangements for the debit order to either to be moved to the 5th of December, 5th of February.
Okay, so let's now move to the scenario where, let's just say you were kind of negligent and you start seeing debit orders bouncing. Maybe you weren't paying attention, you didn't log into your banking, you are Decembering and you've lost track of time. Now the debit order has bounced. What can you do when you see the debit order has bounced? Because the bank is going to charge you for that bouncing debit order. Forget the part of who was even trying to debit your... Yes, the bank is going to charge you. Talk to us about what options are available, or let's rather start with what are the immediate implications.
So you spoke about, Decembering, and then it follows.
It's not Decembering, Decembering.
Decembering.
Yes.
And then January is coming,
Yes.
where you worry about how you're gonna pay your account. So when you discovered or realized that obviously there was not sufficient money in your accounts to pay the debts, I think it's important immediately to contact all the creditors to make sure that you make arrangements and kind of try and settle those debts as soon as possible. Skip debit orders or skip payments is definitely going to impact your creditworthiness and your credit score. And that the consequence of that is, so should you need to apply for any debt in the future, your chances of being successful then diminishes because of your impaired credit record. So it's important not to have any skip debit or to forget about debit orders that's going to run. So my advice is really try your damnedest, plan, because we all know December is coming. So plan throughout the year, make sure you have provisions for December and for debit orders that will run in December and start of January, because we know also it's back to school in the new year, back to varsity school fees. School fees needs to be paid, varsity fees needs to be paid. So my advice to customers and parents is to make provision throughout the year for those expenses as well, because we know it's coming.
There's some questions coming through on the WhatsApp line, 07270210702, and you can give us a call, 011 8830702. You will tell us, Julian, if the question is out of your jurisdiction. But this is from Brasai in Santon, who says, how permanent is a credit report? If you had a bad record a while ago, how long does it stick for?
So score. So let's talk about Absa's how we assess clients. So we use a behavioral scorecard. So our philosophy is that how you conducted your affairs in the past is a good, not the only indication, is an indication of how you will conduct your finances going forward. So unfortunately, a bureau the defaults will unfortunately be on your records for at sometimes up to 2 to 3 years. It will reflect against you, and like I said, it will impact your credit score and also your credit worthiness to then qualify for further finance.
So does that mean that it's not reversible? There's nothing you can do now except wait out the period of good behavior?
Yeah. So what often happens, we find that customers, when they become aware of a default or some adverse indicator on bureau, our advice normally is to go to the creditor that they owe the money to and pay the debt, because there's also then for us a signal or a willingness to not only take up debt but also to settle debt, and that also will stand you in good stead as a consumer, to make sure that even if you have a default, like Abraham has now said, he's got some impaired credit history, to go to those creditors and repay the debts. So obviously our scorecard will pick up those debts, will pick up those defaults, and will penalize you. However, when we have a discussion, when you speak to the sales consultant, there will be an opportunity for you to explain the circumstances, because we know that life happens. Sickness in the family, funeral in the family. So unforeseen circumstances might have occurred. Hence the reason why you're sitting with an impaired credit record. However, your willingness to repay those debts will really stand you in good stead going forward.
Would that include, even if you're not settling the whole debt, but putting in more than the minimum repayment?
So that also is, and making sure. So if you enter into an agreement or a settlement agreement with a creditor, we also look at that. So how have you been paying that debt now, after you've been, obviously maybe they've taken you through a legal process, and now you're paying back. So that also will stand you in good stead to make sure that even that debt you pay on time, and to your point, if you have any additional funds, to pay it in, if you have additional funds, to make sure that you reduce that debt, because obviously it's also gonna add into your, when we do the calculation around affordability, we will take that debt into account as well. So the sooner you can get rid of that debt, the better for yourself.
I've got you. One other one says, hi Relebogile, is reversing one's debit order most of the time have an impact on your credit record?
And I'm going to venture a guess there. I would imagine it would have an impact, because why are you not honoring debit orders going through your account? So that will be, and also if you're not honoring debit orders, have you made arrangements to maybe say, I will pay that debt with a cash payment? Because if a debit order gets reversed, it will reflect on bureau that you've missed or skipped payments. So yes, it is a bit. It will count. It will definitely count against you when you have multiple unpaid debit orders or reversing of debit. Because the reason is, and I think there's also another side to it. So sometimes you might have an account with whoever, MTN or whatever, and now you've cancelled that contract. However, because of their systems, the debit order still runs and it has not settled. So in those cases, then there's a valid reason as to why the debit order would be reversed on your side. But if you have a legal binding contract with a creditor, then why would you want to reverse the debit order if there's no other explanation as to why you want to? Then it will definitely count against you.
And isn't it that once the debit order has bounced, usually the company will try a second time, so you will get charged again
if it bounces again. Yes. So they do run debit orders more than once to see if they're successful in retrieving the funds. So I think that the bottom line is, make sure that when debit orders are due and payable, that you have sufficient funds in your account, because I think the unintended consequences of not having the funds in your account is dire for our clients. I mean, especially when you're thinking of buying your next home or buying a home for you and your family, or you're needing to buy a car, or wanting to send your child to varsity, and you need to need to get a student loan. So I think the unintended consequence of not servicing and paying debit orders is really dire for clients.
Another one says, why do some companies not do debit orders? They're giving an example of Mr. Price saying, which requires that I remember every month to check the amount and pay via EFT. Are there still companies that don't offer debit orders?
Not as far as I'm
As
aware.
far as I know, that's not the case. So I would recommend that you go into the Mr. Price or whatever the store is, because I've seen many companies that even give an incentive for you to switch
to debit
to
order.
debit orders. So maybe go and check. But my advice would be that debit orders, they just simplify your life. And when you say it requires, I remember every month. I mean, every month at some point you need to be paying some bills. So include that in your bills where you're like, these are my obligations, so I know I need to pay a minimum of X amount, but I was not aware. But what I'll do is I'll ask Wendy Nola when she's with us, our consumer rights ninja, just to tell us if there are still places that don't offer debit orders. And then another one says, how often should you check your credit score, and does using your cards to buy alcohol affect your credit score? No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
Unless the
However,
alcohol is stopping you from paying your bill.
I think that the challenge though with using your debit order to pay for anything is, and I think maybe what clients often miss is that your credit score, in your credit score, there's also an element that actually checks your utilization of debt.
Yes.
So how often you make use of your credit cards, and also the amount that you use. So let's say if your limit is 10,000 rand, are you on that 10,000 rand limit every single day and every single month? So that also counts against you on your credit score as well. So no, you're quite right. Buying alcohol it won't affect your credit score. However, if it does impact you forgetting to pay your bills, then it will then it will have an impact.
It is 2:30, time for the news. We continue when we come back. Questions on 011 883 0702 and the WhatsApp line 072 7021 702. We've still got 5,000 Rand in cash to give away courtesy of Absa Home Loans. So, Julian, just in terms of missing the payments now, give us a picture, and I don't know what hypothetical numbers we can use, of how it starts to impact your credit score. So let's say we are using the scale of 0 to 100, where good credit score is 80 to 100, and a bad credit score is obviously once you start getting to your lower 50s, 40s, 30s, 20s.
So with us, we normally gauge.
Can I just ask you to speak into your mic? There we go. There we go. Yes.
So with us, we normally look at the bad credit score below 600, 620 is normally not a good credit score, and we would find that, that would normally result in, when you apply for a home loan, that would normally kick you out, and maybe not give you a favorable outcome or a favorable loan to value. So maybe that. So a miss or skip payment, depending on the magnitude, can result in you then getting a score that is unfavorable in terms of the bank's lending criteria. So again, I cannot emphasize enough to make sure that you pay your debit orders timelessly, and make sure that you make provision in your account to pay those accounts. And like I said, when you know that you're going to struggle, please make sure you call Absa, because your story matters to us, and we want to assist you.
Then the other question then is obviously, how would that impact your relationship with your bank?
So it can, so as a bank, we will not take your call though. So
Yes.
let me put it up front though. So even if you have missed or skipped a payment, it will there will be a bit of a broken and trust a broken relationship with the bank manager, with your bank. But again, like I said, life happens. So important that you call your bank and make sure that you then phone. And as I mentioned earlier on, the other implication of a missed or skip pay, a debit order, is that you might not qualify for another loan.
Yes.
That the dream house that you want to put your family in, you might not be able to get into that property because of your credit score being impacted, and now you don't pass the bank's criteria.
So I want to just briefly touch on why credit is good, because sometimes we will have this mentality of, well, I'm just going to do everything cash, right? So let's assume this person has only ever operated cash, meaning they have no credit history whatsoever. And now they come to the bank to say, I want to apply for a home loan, right? What is their starting score if they don't have a record?
So they're going to have so what we have is what we call a thin file, so meaning that there's not a lot of information on bureau, and we have tools to assess you if your score comes out as a thin file.
So thin file means we don't have enough
information on the bureau to make a call on your creditworthiness, and we have other tools to then assess you.
Which is and what would those tools be? Would it be seeing 6 months bank statement? What would that include?
So part of it will be obviously your profession. So we look at what profession you're in, how long you've been in with the employer that you at currently, and obviously we'll get information from your payslip and from the bank statement as well, so we can see how you've been paying your debt.
So me saying I bought a City Golf cash means nothing to you.
It means nothing to
no. Which is
we want to see, we obviously want to see, because like I said, we have a behavioral scorecard.
Yes.
Is what we use to assess our clients, and that says that we'll look at how you performed and how you've managed your finances in the past. And again, I want to emphasize, it's an indication. It's not the only indication of how well you will then service your debt in the future if you give you a loan.
So just in terms of those that are looking to eventually do that big long-term, like a home loan,
right.
But they have been operating cash only, what advice would you give them if they say, okay, I need to start building a bit of a credit record? What should they start with? Because I get terrified. I'm seeing 4-year cell phone contracts. I'm like, how did we get here?
Yeah, no.
There are 48-month cell phone contracts. It is insane.
So I think a good starting point would be a credit card, and then obviously maybe start with a personal loan and vehicle finance. But again, I want to emphasize, also make sure around your utilization. So if you know that you're going to buy a property in the next 6 months, don't go take up the debt within that period, close to when you want to apply for the home loan, because it's going to impact. I've mentioned earlier on. So we look at how many times you've applied for finance or debt, and also the magnitude of the debt that you've applied for, and also the utilization of that debt. So if, like I explained with a credit card, if you have a 10,000 rand limit, try not to use go up to the 10,000 limit every single day or every single month, because that's also going to impact your credit score.
All right, we're going to go to the lines. We've got Donovan from Edenvale. Hi, Donovan.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thanks, and you?
Good, thank you. So my question would be, I do have a credit card, but every month I put money into my credit card. So like in December, when I need to use my credit card, like for whatever reason, to buy plane tickets or whatever, so I'm not using my credit card money. So whatever money is allocated to me, I'm using my personal money basically, because it's in my credit card, right? Will that better my score, or will it affect my score?
So it won't better your score. and because you're actually using your credit card as a savings tool, and not, so we can't pick up the trend of how you've been utilizing credit. So it's not going to give you a better outcome or a better score, for lack of a better word. The fact that you have
Yeah.
Maybe why don't you use your credit card and pay it back before the
course.
interest kicks in?
Yeah. Remember, you also with credit card you get 54 days interest free with Absa as well. So also remember that. So if you buy something now, you're getting 54 days interest free period on that purchase.
Does that make sense, Donovan?
Because so you're saying now my score, does it help my score? No.
It's not,
No, because if anything, you're not using the credit facility because you are using your own money. Yeah. You're using it as a safe, savings, as storage, basically. Yeah. So now they can't track. So what we're saying is maybe consider actually using the credit card, but make sure you pay it before the 54 days of the interest kicking in.
Okay, that makes more sense. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Donovan. Thank you so much. We've got a voice note as well that is coming up, and that question that will win somebody 5,000 Rand cash.
702, serving the 702 family in.
It is 11 minutes to 3 o'clock, and it is the masterclass brought to you by Absa Home Loans. Today we're talking about the implications and risks of skipping credit and debt payments with Julian Pick, Head of Credit Lending at Absa Home Loans. So here are the rules when it comes to the competition to win the 5,000 Rand cash. It is very simple. You WhatsApp your answer only. Do not call with your answer. We're going to prioritize callers that have questions on the topic that we are discussing. The fastest correct fingers will be the one that takes the prize. The first fastest correct fingers is the one that will be winning the 5,000 Rand cash courtesy of Absa Home Loans. So here is the question. Very simple. How often can you check your credit report for free on platforms like Experian, TransUnion, and ClearScore? How often can you check your credit report for free? 072 702 1702. We've got a voice note that came in.
Hi there. My questions are, if you're paying bills on time and you're never late, how and why is your information shared with credit bureaus? Also thinking of the POPI Act. In other words, what right does the banks and retail stores, etc., have to share the information with credit bureaus? One would think perhaps only when you are making late payments or defaults that then it gets shared. That's the first question. The other one is, why do the banks charge so much when you don't meet debit orders? Absa, I know, charges 150 Rand per return debit, and also the other penalty fees as well. So it seems like the banks actually enjoy, or rather profit enormously from return debits. So why is it so punitive?
All right, let's deal with the first question. And maybe it requires you to explain to us a little bit what the role of the credit bureau in the country is. That why is it that the information needs to be public? And public meaning public to other lenders, because if you are paying on time, there is no, you signing the contract, you are committing to have your information available. So it's not the POPI Act being anything. But share with us the role of the credit bureau.
So maybe just to start to go back to the question posed. So when you apply for finance, you actually sign an indemnity where you're telling the bank or the financier that they can share your information with the credit bureau. So the credit bureau is there to collect the information on how you are conducting your financial affairs. And that's important because we know that we're regulated in South Africa by the National Credit Act. So as banks, Absa Bank included, we need to make sure that our clients are not over indebted. And part of that, our investigation or our calculations in terms of affordability is then and I want to mention again that we use a behavioral scorecard for when we do assessments of whether you qualify for finance. And so bureaus are the only other place that we can find that, information collectively to give us a view of how you've been conducting your affairs. So the bureaus are there to collect information on client behavior in terms of debt repayments. And that's available to all financiers. So I think it's yes, I hear the concern from Donovan around if I meet my commitments timeously. But it's not only for clients that meet their commitments timeously. It's also there to give a view of clients that don't meet their commitments timeously. So I hope that explains the question to Donovan around meeting your around why information is shared with the bureau, to also again to make sure that you're not over indebted. So if you've taken out a loan with a credit provider recently, and you now then apply at another financial institution for another loan for whatever product you want. So if we don't have sight of what you've applied for and what debt you have, it's difficult for us then to make a informed decision around whether you'll be able to afford the loan. Remember, I said we want to make sure that our clients aren't over indebted, that you are in a position to afford the new loan that you're paying for.
So the second question then is why are banks charging so much?
So really, it's around the admin of actually administering and making calls for the debit order is why we don't want to do it. I mean, so remember, I want to go back to where I started. Make sure that you're able to meet your debit orders timeously. Make sure there's funds in your account. Then we won't have this discussion around why is banks charging me a penalty for debit orders that has not been able to be honored.
So just to reiterate, because Bill on the WhatsApp line says, I've given no approval for any bank to share any of my information since the POPI Act was implemented. By virtue of you signing a contract, right, that you are getting something on credit, you have indemnified the bank from any liability. So even if it was prior to the POPI Act, you need to go and look at the contract which says you give us permission to check and to share your information. Yes, because there was a time where it was so easy to just get any kind of credit, and then afterwards rules had to be put in place because people found themselves terribly indebted in this country. So
over-indebted.
Yes, over indebted. So the question we asked was very, very simple. How often can you check your credit report for free on platforms like Experian and TransUnion? Lebo Mahodielo from Randfontein. What is your answer? How often?
Free credit report once a year.
Congratulations! You are the winner of 5,000 Rand cash, courtesy of Absa Home Loans. And I'm so excited for you. Wish you all the best. Congratulations on taking home that prize. Now, thank you for tuning into the 702 Masterclass with me, Relebogile Mabotja, brought to you by Absa Home Loans. Come back every first and last Wednesday of the month for more conversations with property industry experts guiding you on the next chapter of your home ownership story. Wherever you find yourself on the journey, congratulations again to Lebo, having won 5,000 Rand just for listening in to the show and answering one simple question. Now, don't forget to go to the 702 Facebook and X pages for a chance to also be our next winner. Absa Home Loans is committed to housing the nation one home ownership story at a time. Your story matters. Absa, T's and C's apply. Absa is an authorized financial services and registered credit provider, NCR CP7.